turn it up. Yeah. Clock eyes, Uncle Dave.
It's a dynasty. It's a dynasty. It's a dynasty. It's a dynasty. Hey, let's talk. What moves to do? Who to trade for who? Get your fantasy stats and the place to boot. Get the plans for the draft and the major clues. With the home Sean, Joey, and Andrew. Dan dudes got the hot takes. Every stop place, not base, plot cases. Man, hit the streams of fate. Talking teams and plays. But let's get to the show, man. See you later.
All right, welcome back to Dynasty Football Digest. This is now our second official episode since the rebrand. We got a few more wide receivers to talk. We got probably one more wide receiver show next week. But yeah, I'm here with my co-host Andrew.
What's up?
Where can we find you on Twitter, Andrew?
You got a
I'm sorry, what was that?
At Biddy Sent FF.
All right, Joey, where can we find you?
At Joey the Tooth IDP.
All right, and you can find me at Laney1925. So yeah, we're gonna talk Devin Duvernay, Isaiah Hodgins, Van Jefferson, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Collin Johnson this week. We got a couple more to cover next week, and then we'll probably move on to this just dreadful tight end class that I just don't even want to spend time watching, but we'll suffer through it for you guys. So yeah, Devin Duvernay, one of you guys have strong feelings on him, or do you want me to start?
I liked him. He was my favorite out of this group. I felt like he was so. On film, I thought he looked relatively small. I looked him up. He's actually bigger than I thought. I think he's 5'10", 200. So what I saw was he was quick and he was fast, but he was still relatively tough, despite what appeared to me to be a little bit undersized. Like he was always fighting for extra yards, fighting for yards after contact, things like that. I found he was very shifty. I thought he was a good route runner. He seemed to run the vast majority of his routes out of the slot, which I think maybe disguises maybe if he's not as good of a runner as he appeared to be, because it's always easier to get separation out of the slot, but he always seemed to be able to get separation in his routes. I thought he had good hands. There was a couple of occasions where I saw that he did have the opportunity to track the ball a little bit deeper. In particular, it was like a corner route, and he tracked it over his shoulder, caught it, got his feet in bounds. Actually, pretty nice highlight reel play. And it demonstrated, I think, some good body awareness, so body control and field awareness. I also like that he was heavily involved. Like, sometimes you're watching these guys on film and you're kind of, almost falling asleep between opportunities to watch them actually be involved. And he was so heavily involved in their offense. I thought, he carried a heavy load, and I thought he did it well. One thing that I had was he wasn't necessarily super creative after the catch. Like, I don't think he was super elusive in the open field, but he was always fighting for extra yards. He was trying. He just didn't have maybe a lot of creativity to get it done with. So maybe that could be a limitation of his game. But overall, I thought he was a good prospect. Just maybe not dominant enough in any one area to translate fantasy-wise.
So yeah, and I think what you're seeing there is something that I definitely noticed. I think he's not very laterally explosive. I think that shows up in his routes, and it shows up after the catch. I think he's good in terms of the technical aspects of his routes, but I think he's probably limited in that area athletically, and I think that's probably why some of those things show up. And I think that hurts him in a couple areas of his game. I think it hurts his releases, which is probably why you end up with him in the slot a little more. I think it is going to hurt him a little more in the NFL after the catch, because the physicality will still definitely translate, but I think that it's a little tougher to just bully NFL defenders than it is to just bully these smaller college kids, especially when some of them are freshmen and they're 18-year-old kids that he's just running over. I had issue with him not extending for the football a lot of times. And like he's clearly capable of it, but it was just very inconsistent. He just kind of let it into his frame. But I really liked his speed. I really liked his tracking ability. I think that if he plays in the slot, he's going to be able to attack this team. He's going to be able to get the ball in his hands and make plays after the catch. His lack of lateral agility kind of worries me a little bit with the two-way goes and just like trying to create separation in that way. But I guess it's something that I think he's a good enough route runner that he should have at least adequate separation in the NFL. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums up his game. I think that he's a physical enough player that he can probably improve his releases. He's going to have to do it with physicality. I don't know that he's ever going to be able to do it with just explosiveness off the line and really good footwork. I just don't know if that's ever going to be his game. He's more of just like a straight line athlete, but I think that he could definitely start in the slot and improve in those areas and kind of move his way outside. But yeah, I think he's not going to be the focal point of an NFL offense, but he could definitely be a complementary piece there.
Yeah, I mean, I like how he's got that frame. He's built almost like a running back. He's got huge legs. I think he can be used well in the screen game. He's a little impatient when he gets the ball in his hands. He kind of just gets it and goes. He doesn't let anything set up. I watched him get a couple screen passes, and he just kind of catches and goes. Doesn't let anything set up. I wasn't really impressed by his route running. I feel like he has like very limited dip in his hips, and his breaks really aren't that explosive. He uses speed to manipulate a lot on his go routes, but like anything across the middle, I didn't see any good release. You don't see any press coverage because everybody's afraid of his speed. So you don't know how he is against press. But given his size, I think he'll be fine against press. I don't think anybody getting their hands on him is really going to be an issue. The other thing I thought that he didn't do well was adjust to poorly thrown balls. Like he doesn't really adjust to the ball well. If it's over the shoulder, he tracks it great. But if he has to make an adjustment on it, he has a really tough time doing it. But overall, I mean, his speed, his strength, I think nobody's going to overmatch him in the slot. He's just a strong guy. But
so when you're saying that he doesn't adjust to pass as well, are you calling Andrew a liar when he said that he saw a really good rep in that department?
No. I just because that wasn't a poorly thrown ball. He just tracked it well. He was saying, like if you have a, I just don't feel like if he's running his corner route and the ball maybe goes over the other shoulder, he doesn't adjust well. If it was
just felt like you were calling Biddy a liar there, but
I don't. I love my Andrew.
Joey, when you said he doesn't have much dip in his routes, do you mean when you dip, I dip, we dip?
Yeah. I put my hand upon your hip, and when you dip, I dip, we dip. You dip yours, you dip mine. I don't know the rest.
Isaiah Hodgins.
We'll cut that part.
No, we won't. We definitely won't. Joey, you want to talk Isaiah Hodgins? I know you're a huge fan.
I am a big fan of Isaiah Hodgins, actually. I have been for quite some time, actually. I had him on one of my college fantasy football teams, and he's great in the red zone. Beautiful back shoulder and fade routes in the red zone. Very strong hands, good in contested catch situations, even though he doesn't seem strong. Like his combine reps, so he put up 9 reps of 225, but his hands are incredibly strong, and he high points the ball well. If you watch his tape, and he has multiple diving catches, like he's a highlight reel. He's got a huge catch radius, attacks the ball in the air, doesn't really catch with his frame, so that radius really comes into play. He's not like super fluid in his routes, but for a man his size, he has some pretty decent breaks, and he's got a pretty good double move, which I saw him use a couple times to get open. His initial burst is more or less just adequate, but he's got long stride speed. It will work well for being a deep threat. Things that I saw that he didn't do well. He's not very physical, and he can be overmatched by press coverage. He needs to work on his release of the line. But other than that, I thought Hodgins was actually a pretty good prospect.
I think he might get stuck in the slot because I don't know with his frame how much he can improve his releases. I actually liked his route running though. And then the other thing I disagreed with you on is like he definitely can extend to catch the ball. Like he definitely does when necessary, but I think he does let it get into his body a little too often when he doesn't need to extend for it. And just with his frame, that worries me a little bit because he's not going to be able to box people out the same way he did in college at the next level. But I do like that he knows how to use his frame. I think he has really good hands, and I really like his alpha mentality as well. He was definitely a player I really enjoyed. He also, I don't think he got enough credit for what he did after the catch. I don't know how well that'll translate to the NFL, but like, I like seeing when guys are running to the sideline, throwing out a stiff arm to just maximize yardage as they get shoved out of bounds.
And that just goes into, like you said, his competitive nature is huge.
Yeah, and just the alpha mentality is big for me. Andrew?
I agree with all of that, and I had the biggest thing for me was I thought that he did a good job separating with his nuance, not with his speed, because he doesn't have speed. But what kept coming up in my mind was that he's a less athletic Pittman who is a less athletic Mims, and I just don't know that there is. Is there a need for three of the same receiver, and is the least talented, least athletic one of them going to be relevant? Do you know what I mean?
I think there's always a need for the bigger slot receivers. That's definitely a trend that's moving up in the NFL. Because you look back at it and like Marcus Colston was really like the first big one, or Dwayne Bowe maybe. But then you kind of get Tyler Boyd in there, and they weren't quite sure how to use him. They tried using him outside before moving him back to the slot, and now like teams have kind of figured out what to do with that bigger slot receiver. And I think that it's an upward trend because basically people were putting their smaller, shiftier corners in the slots. So then you counter that by throwing bigger slots in there, and then you're basically going to have to shift to having bigger nickel corners now at this point. But I definitely think there's a role for him in the NFL. Anybody who runs good routes and catches the ball well, there's a place for them. Anything else to add, Andrew?
No, I mean, like I said, I agree with everything you said. I liked his route running, I liked his hands, catch radius. He reminded me of those other players, so don't want to repeat it.
Fair enough. All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to talk Van Jefferson and Donovan Peoples-Jones. All right, we're back to talk Van Jefferson. Did either of you guys have any strong feelings about him?
He was kind of a mixed bag.
I liked him. I didn't like him as much as Duvernay, but I did like him.
For me, like, he's got decent routes. He's got decent hands. Catches away from his frame. It is a pretty lean frame. I just, like, nothing really popped. You know, like, he had good hands, but it didn't, like, pop. He had, like, good routes, but it didn't pop. And just, like, to me, in a class like this, like, it didn't do anything for me. And, like, combine that with, I don't think he was very athletic, was he? Did he test?
I don't think he did very much testing. I couldn't find very many numbers on him.
Okay. Well, he didn't look athletic on tape. And then the lean frame, and then poor production. Like, those are all red flags to me. I think he's a little older too. Like, I think he's
he turns 24 before the draft.
Yeah, those are all red flags to me. Like, no analytic model is gonna like that. And then on top of that, like, just the rest of it that he did well, it wasn't like a dominant trait for him. So I don't know. He's one where it's like, yeah, he's probably a good college player, but I don't know if that's gonna make him a good pro player.
Yeah, I thought he ran routes well. He had good releases, but I think his.
See, and I thought he struggled with his releases.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought he had good releases. I thought the fact that he was just a below average athlete, I think it just affects it that much more. I don't know. I felt like he used defenders' leverage against them quite well. Like he seemed like a smart player, but he's just, I don't know, like you said, nothing popped.
Yeah, and I think like there's probably a role for that on an NFL team, but like how valuable is that role? Like
Right.
I don't think you'd want to like start him in the slot. Like I think
He's too small. Like he's thin.
yeah, I mean
He's
so is
almost
Hodgins.
200.
He just looks. I don't know. He's got a small frame. He's just.
His
I don't know.
frame is super lean.
Combine has him at 6'1", 200.
I'm very surprised by those numbers.
Mm.
That might be why he didn't run anything.
I was gonna say he put on a bunch of weight.
I thought I saw him somewhere else at 6'2", 195, which is not that far off. But he's also, I don't know if you guys know this, he's his dad played in the NFL, and his dad is an assistant with the Jets currently. So I think
They need receivers.
no, I'm not saying that's going to give him an into the Jets, but maybe a practice squad. But what I mean is like he's probably what you're probably seeing on film is he probably is maybe a little bit better schooled than a lot of these receivers that we're seeing. He's a little bit older. He's a little bit better coached. So I think certainly those are things in his favor. What I saw, the thing that jumped out at me the most, like he said, his hands don't jump out as route running. I thought it was really exciting after the catch. I thought he had speed and elusiveness after the catch in the open field. Not elite, but in terms of what he did for his offense, I thought it was it complemented his offense very well because it was very much a run first offense. He was not heavily involved. He didn't get a lot of opportunities, but I thought that every time he got the ball in his hands, he tried to make the most of it. I did see the slight frame. I didn't see really much at all of deep ball ability. It seems like he was very much involved on sort of short and intermediate routes. So maybe that's a physical,
So I guess when you're running most of your routes short and intermediate, it's concerning to me when you're not getting production because usually when you're doing that, you're running screen passes, slants, ins, outs, stuff like that, like just really quick routes. You tend to rack up the targets and the catches because they're easy completions for the quarterback. So like it just kind of compounds the poor production. But like if you're not going to threaten the seam and you're not like overly physical, and you don't have like any super dominant traits, I just don't know what that does for you. Where like I think Isaiah Hodgins had some dominant traits, like he flashed on tape where there were plays where you say wow, and I don't think that Van Jefferson really gave us many of those. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's probably a like second slot in the NFL.
Yeah,
but like where this kind of diverges is that a lot of people I respect a good deal really like him. I just don't see it. I don't know.
I'm with you though. I am.
All right. Anything else about Van Jefferson here? Okay. Donovan Peoples-Jones it is. I'll let you guys go first because you're gonna trash him. So let's do that. Andrew.
So you say I'm going to trash him. I did not love him, but I'm not going to trash him because actually I liked him more than I expected to like him. Most of what I had sort of my preconception, most of what I had heard was that he was very one-dimensional. He was he had some physical traits that were, truly elite as demonstrated in the combine this weekend, right? But he didn't necessarily have a whole lot of refinement to his game. And his like as you noted with Jefferson, his production was very, very modest. Possibly a product of his offense, but
it's a product of Shea Patterson.
Yeah, QB play.
Sure.
How is Shea Patterson being considered for an NFL team right now?
Because he played for Michigan.
But it's astounding to me, man. Even at the combine, like just watching him just sail passes over his receiver's head versus air. It's just like that's what Peoples-Jones had to deal with. But go ahead, Andrew. I'll probably go on another Shea Patterson rant here in a second.
So whenever I hear like physical freak, but sort of lateral refinement, what I always sort of in my mind it goes to is like, oh, the guy can't catch. But what I saw on tape was like he's actually got really good ball skills. He's really good in the air, especially. I thought he was a jump ball specialist, coming down with some circus catches. I didn't see what I again with a physical specimen. I expect him to be a little bit more either elusive or violent in the open field, and I didn't really see either of those traits. I didn't see him trucking defenders or like breaking ankles in the open field. So I felt like that maybe is a little bit of a limitation, but again, he didn't have a great deal of opportunity to demonstrate that either. So I think he's a very raw and difficult to gauge prospect just because of the limitations in his tape. So I don't know. I'm not writing him off. He has some gifts. He has some traits that are not coachable. So maybe with a little bit of coaching, he can put them to better use.
I agree with a lot of what you said. You're gonna wait.
I was just gonna say, I'm just waiting for him to land on the Bears and get stuck with Trubisky and spend his entire career like between Shea Patterson and Trubisky, and then just be out of the league because he can't get a quarterback that can hit him.
He's gonna quit. He'll just quit.
He's gonna pull a what was the running back? Michigan State. God.
James Langford or Langford.
No. This was I think last year. He got drafted or he got signed by the Browns, and so then he just retired. I'm dead serious. He retired like before he even made it to training camp, and he didn't like he framed it as retiring. It was God, I can't remember this kid's name. Keep going, I'll figure it out for you.
I agree with a lot of what Andrew said. He's got a good size. He attacks the ball in the air. He had great body control in contested catch situations. He's super competitive. He's very good ball tracker. He dealt with horrible QB play, like we were talking about. Shea Patterson's terrible. My biggest knock, LJ Scott.
Yeah, that's who it was. Yeah.
My biggest knock on Peoples-Jones though is his short area quickness. He rarely wins within the first 5 yards. I feel like he just, I don't know. He's got no burst side to side. He's like a straight line guy. I don't know.
Yeah, and we didn't see him do his agility testing. I'm curious if it's just footwork, because it just seems like there's a lot of all the things that he does well are the things that you don't really get coached to do, and all the things you get coached to do, you just like he doesn't do super well. Like his routes are not super crisp. His releases are actually okay, I think. Like they're not dominant or anything, but I think they're okay, and I think they get better at the next level. But like as an athlete, he's astounding. I thought he was really good after the catch. It's not as flashy after the catch, but he does a really good job with angles and using his athleticism to beat guys with angles rather than, trucking them or juking them. His hands are really good. His ability away from his frame, really good. And that leaping ability and just the body control and adjustments, all of it, like all of that points to like a legitimate and like above average speed, like good, not just above average, good speed, like 4.4s is good speed. All of that points to like a prototypical deep threat wide receiver, but like he played in an offense where the quarterback, like if he's
had no deep ball.
20 yards downfield, it's going to be 20 yards underthrown. Like that's going out to the sideline. Like I don't know.
So bad.
Like just to give you an idea, I was doing my rookie rankings today. It's like fucking 92 players. I'm looking at it and I don't even know who some of these people are. So I just like put them in placeholder positions while I got around them, because like some of these tight ends I just haven't watched yet. And it didn't matter. I put Shea Patterson at the very bottom. It's like I haven't seen this guy.
He should just be removed. He should not be in the rankings.
Just like I haven't seen this guy play. He has no numbers. He tested horribly. Went to a small school. don't care. Still put him above Shea Patterson. Like, oh man. But yeah, if you're drafting Donovan Peoples-Jones, you're drafting all upside, and you're probably not expecting significant production year one. Like, if you do, it's going to be volatile because I think the way he wins in year one is going to be on those deep balls, just because that's where his skill set excels. But some of the other stuff, like cleaning up his route technique, cleaning up his releases a little bit, like those are things that I think will get coached up, and then hopefully you can be utilized in different areas of the field. Andrew, any disagreement with any of that?
No.
All right.
I guess I do have one question though.
Yeah.
You had said that what he does well isn't coached and what he does poorly is coached. Do you think that it's a lack of coaching, or do you think that he's not responded well to the coaching that he's had?
It could go either way. There's no way to say, but I guess like realistically, man, none of those Michigan wide receivers look good this year, and they're all talented.
Yeah.
Like that, and I don't know. I don't really know the best explanation for it.
Here at Michigan, how do you not recruit a better quarterback?
Well, Shea Patterson was supposed to be like a good college quarterback. They recruited him from Ole Miss, which is how we got stuck with, and that's how we got stuck with Jordan Ta'amu, and having to watch his tape a million times last year for AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, DeMarcus Lodge, and Dawson Knox. Like, it was just like, if I have to watch one more fucking rep of Jordan Ta'amu,
that freaking receiving corp is so good.
Yeah,
that's so good.
Yeah. Well, now he's playing in the XFL and he's doing okay, I think. I don't know, but that's where Shea Patterson is going to excel.
So Philip Wheeler,
the XFL.
Yeah, he should just go straight there, man. Like, just skip the draft.
They shouldn't have a supplementary draft. They should just have like an XFL draft afterwards.
I mean, that's basically what's going to be happening. So they're just going to be signing players from the XFL. So, one kid in the draft, cornerback, I don't know who it is, but he was deemed ineligible academically. So he was just like, fine, fuck it, I'll go to the XFL. And he's like draft eligible, but he put like another year on tape in the XFL as opposed to in college. So
nice.
I forget who it is, but he's going to get drafted. So that'll be interesting. So it'll like kind of set a precedent for it.
They do that in like college basketball and shit.
Does the XFL have the rule where you have to have a certain number of? They must not if they let him in, eh? Could you go into the XFL straight out of high school?
I don't know. I honestly am not sure. So
it's like the NBA D League.
This will be an interesting way to figure it out. But also, like, I don't know that people are going to do that straight out of high school, because you think about it, like, some of these guys in the XFL are like 28, 29 years old, like grown men. And then you've got
old. Just old.
What are you trying to say?
For a football player?
What are you saying?
To start a career?
No, I'm saying you got 28, 29-year-old players in the XFL, and like you're coming out of high school as an 18-year-old. Like, you're just very underdeveloped. Like, you're underdeveloped as an athlete, which is why like the college game is so important. It's just like developing them as athletes to get them ready.
I'd just like to go on record in saying that 28 years old is the peak of youth.
Really?
Yeah, it's not old.
I'm not saying that. Jesus Christ!
I said I meant to start an NFL career or a football career was old.
It's not even that. It's about like being 18 years old going up against a grown man.
What are you talking about?
That's why the NFL has the rule. That's why I was asking about the rule. If there's a rule,
that's legitimately the point I was making.
I don't know what point were you making.
I don't know. It doesn't even matter anymore. Andrew's just gonna grab his drumsticks and just sit there and distract us and put on some weird fucking hat and just be a weirdo over there. All right, Shea Patterson sucks. Let's go to break and come back and talk Collin Johnson. we got one guy to talk about here before we wrap it up and do our tier breaks. Collin Johnson, Andrew, go.
Well, I told you not to do that because I did watch I did watch some of his film and I didn't see him do anything. So
Andrew,
my
go.
observations were that he was not particularly athletic looking, running poor routes from what I could tell. He didn't seem to be heavily involved in the offense, given that I did not see him make a single catch. I don't know if the cuts that I was watching were specifically not his cuts, but it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous to me. I watched over a game and a half, almost 2 games, and I was like, no, this is stupid. I'm not doing this anymore because he's not making any plays. So apparently he's very large. I did look that up because I was like, why is this guy a prospect? So he's like 6'6". And I did look up that he did have games where he did catch footballs. He had several actually pretty big games.
This is like the worst analysis.
I don't like him. I don't like what I saw.
Catch footballs.
So just for everyone listening out there, first of all, I'm sorry. Second of all, Andrew tends to procrastinate on the film. I'm sure that shocks everybody, but it's like he has all week to watch these guys, and then like Monday morning he'll text us and be like, "So who am I watching today?" It's like, what do you mean? You've had all week. How have you not gotten around to this yet?
To put it into perspective, we had a group meeting together and we were talking about laziness, and Andrew says, well, as a lazy person.
Yes, as a lazy person, I can say this.
Let me just say, this is how I do things.
Yeah. So just a little more in-depth than that. He is big. He's very physical, huge frame. He uses his frame well, catches outside the frame really well when he tries to. But it's really inconsistent. It shouldn't be as inconsistent as it is, but if he can just utilize that a little better, I think that like significantly helps his profile. I'd love to see him be better against the press. It just like at his size, he should not be struggling with it. He should be beating these guys up. I actually thought he ran better routes than what Andrew is giving him credit for. I don't know that he's ever going to be a separator, even with those routes, but at least like he kind of mitigates how bad he's going to be at separating at the next level. His hands are inconsistent. I don't know. So I guess like my thing with him is that like the ways that he is going to win should be like beating up on defenders, and he does at the catch point for sure. But like, if that's going to be your game, I want to see you dominate physically in all aspects, you know? And that's kind of like to a greater degree or to a lesser degree, T. Higgins. This was just kind of like the smaller issues I had with T. Higgins just completely compounded. So I think he'll probably still get some run as a situational player in the red zone and stuff like that. But I mean, like, how many wide receivers do you see that don't play until you get to the red zone? Like, not many, because you want your best players on the field. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't see much fantasy value here, and I don't think he's athletic enough to really have upside. Like, I don't know that short of, like, severely improving in all of the areas that he fails, I don't really see this as a successful profile, especially for fantasy.
Yeah, he has like zero rack ability. He's purely possession receiver. Like you said, lets the ball into his frame too much, especially with having such a big catch radius. Something he needs to use to his advantage. He doesn't enough.
Because I mean, that's the only way he's going to win.
He's
literally
if you're not
using that. How are you going to win?
Right. He's only going to be a red zone. Yeah, in the NFL, that's the only place I can see him even slightly be successful. I mean, he does have some pretty decent like back shoulder routes, fade routes, but other than that, I don't see him doing too much.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, we know Andrew's with us as well. Let's.
I don't see what you said is much different than what I said.
You don't see how You don't. You really don't.
All right, let me just pick out a clip of what you said. I did see games where he caught footballs.
No, you didn't even see games
I
where he caught
no,
footballs. He saw that there were games where he caught footballs.
in his game log, I located games where he caught footballs. I was not able to locate any film of these events.
Honestly, if
All
you
right,
look at his
so-
career, he was a more consistent receiver than Devin Duvernay. Devin Duvernay didn't really blow up until this year.
So Collin Johnson, Andrews, wide receiver 1. We can just put that tier 1, lock it in. Collin Johnson, better than Jerry Jeudy, better than CeeDee Lamb.
The only thing I have on my sheet is not good at football.
I'm glad you were able to expand upon that so much and just give us so much intelligent content for this podcast.
That's what I'm here
All
for.
Let's do these tiers. Who wants to go first? Andrew,
Me.
just go first. Just go.
Collin
Tier
Johnson.
one is Lamb and Judy. Tier 2 is I found out that he pronounces his name Rigor, not Ragor, and Ruggs.
I thought it was Rager.
That was Rager
So
too.
he posted something on Twitter like day one of the combine. It's Re. It may be Rieger, but it's not Ray. It's Re.
Okay, interesting.
Anyway,
I saw that, but I totally missed the Ray part. But okay, so
Yeah.
Rieger.
Yeah. Rieger. Tier 3 is Justin Jefferson, Higgins, and Tyler Johnson. Tier 4 is Mims and Pittman. 5, I've got Ayuk, Edwards, and Chenault, which I believe is pronounced Chenault, but I'm going to continue to say Chenault. I lost track
You're
of numbers.
really
1,
low
2,
on
3,
Chenault.
4, 5. Tier 6, yeah, I believe I am. Tier 6, I've got, in no particular order, KJ Hill, Hamler, Antonio Gandy Golden, and Duvernay and Hodgins. Tier 7, I have Van Jefferson with Peoples-Jones. Tier 8 is empty. And then tier 9, I've got Collin Johnson.
Empty tier. And then tier
Beats out
10
Collin
Tier
Johnson.
10 is Shea Patterson.
To be determined.
All right. So for me, I got CeeDee Lamb and Jeudy in 1. Ruggs on his own in 2. I think just for me, like Ruggs is a far more complete player than Rager and Chenault for me, and that's my tier after that. All 3 of them have their own concerns, but for me, the production concerns with Ruggs can at least have some explanation, whereas the concerns I have with Rager and Chenault, like you can't really explain them away. So Ruggs is more of a question mark. Rager, Chenault, more concerns being the inconsistent hands and really poor testing comparatively for Rager, and then Chenault and his injury history. Next year, I have Mims, Justin Jefferson, and T. Higgins. I did move T. Higgins up just because draft capital and just like I think that while I don't necessarily like his profile as it stands, he does have dominant traits, and I like that about him. Then the next tier is a big one. So we have Michael Pittman, Isaiah Hodgins, Tyler Johnson, Brandon Ayuk, Brian Edwards, Donovan Peoples-Jones, all in the same tier because they're all guys that I think have a ton of upside, but they all have like at least one significant issue with their game. So Isaiah Hodgins, it's going to be just basically draft capital and team fit. Like, is somebody going to spend a top 3 round pick on him? Like, he definitely seems like the type of player that might fall to round 4 or 5. Michael Pittman, separation. Tyler Johnson, all of the questions this offseason that have been going on with Tyler Johnson and how that affects his draft capital. Brandon Ayuk, just how does his profile translate? Because I think that he kind of struggles to translate inside or outside as a complete wide receiver. So he's got to improve in some of those different ways. Brian Edwards, again, separation concerns. And then Peoples-Jones, obviously no production. The next tier is KJ Hill, KJ Hamler, Gandy Golden. guys that, oh, sorry, I missed a tier here. Duvernay and Van Jefferson are guys that I like, but I don't know how they kind of fit into an NFL team's plans. Like, I don't know that they'll ever be players that are going to see significant amounts of volume. Then we have KJ Hill, KJ Hamler, Gandy Golden, where they're guys that I'm just really not that high on, but I can see certain traits that I like about them. And then there's Collin Johnson.
2 tiers down.
By himself. 2 tiers down.
And then Shea Patterson.
All right. I got tier 1, Judy and Lamb. Tier 2, Ruggs, Rigor. Rigor? Is that what you were saying it is? Rieger. And I also have Mims in that tier too. I think Mims, just the way he tested, and I loved what I saw in his tape, just to go with his size and everything. I think he's really undervalued. I feel like he's hyped, but still undervalued. I feel. Then below that, I have Chenault, Jefferson, and I moved Michael Pittman up after his testing because my biggest knock on him was he seemed like he wasn't really athletic, and I think he cleared up a lot of those concerns at the combine. So that he kind of just like, yes, separation's an issue, but is it something that can be coached? Because I thought it was a lack of athleticism.
Yeah, no, he definitely checked that box. That was a big winner from the combine. Where I'm not going to skyrocket him, but he checked that box. That is not the concern here.
Right. Then in my next tier, it's pretty big. Tyler Johnson, T. Higgins, Brian Edwards, Brandon Ayuk, and Isaiah Hodgins. I think I'm higher on Isaiah Hodgins than Moore. I like what I see at him. He's just a big play guy, and I think he belongs there. But like you said, the biggest problem is going to be draft capital. Does somebody take him?
Right, and that's I think why I have him a little lower. Like if he goes. Do you think he goes in the first 3 rounds?
I think he's got an opportunity to go in the 3rd.
Because, I feel like looking at these receivers, we've got 20 wide receivers we've watched so far. Mm-hmm. And, all of them are getting first 3-round hype. So, if I were to bet on players that were going to fall out of those first 3 rounds, I think I'm kind of looking at, Isaiah Hodgins, Collin Johnson, Gandy Golden, KJ Hill. Those are the guys that I see possibly falling out. Peoples-Jones won't after his combine. Duvernay probably won't. It sounds like the league is very high on Van Jefferson. So I don't know. I think that's a lot of wide receivers to go in the first 3 rounds. So yeah. I definitely think I'd move Hodgins up if it weren't for the draft capital concerns. But yeah, continue.
Then I have after that it's Peoples-Jones, KJ Hamler, and Devin Duvernay. All guys who have traits that I do like, but feel like there's concerns that are going to hold them back. And then I have KJ Hill, Van Jefferson, and Gandy Golden. That's my tier of guys that didn't really impress me, but have incredible hype from people on Twitter. I don't know why, but I didn't see it. And then an empty tier, and then Collin Jefferson.
Collin Johnson,
sorry.
We've already got 2 Jeffersons, so it's one too many Jeffersons already. So, Andrew, you got any complaints with our tiers? You usually do.
No, I think it lined up for the most part. I was a little bit surprised how much higher both of you guys were than I am on Hodgins. You definitely were in our analysis as well, but I thought I liked Hodgins, and you guys just seem to be very effusive in your praise.
I haven't seen anybody that really likes Hodgins as much as either of us, and that's what concerns me, is that I don't think the NFL is going to like him as much as either of us either, which means that he's not going first 3 rounds, which means that I'm not drafting him. So
right.
Basically this whole tier list is going to just be filtered through top 3 rounds. Because just success rate is not great when you go in round 4 or later.
So that's my next question is, I saw a post on Twitter about some analysts are projecting as many as I think the highest I saw was 30 wide receivers in the first 3 rounds, which would be completely unprecedented. Yes. How many do you legitimately? An
entire round almost.
Yeah, how many do you legitimately see going in the first? Like you said, you take I think about 4 maybe 5 guys out of the 20 we've looked at. You see 15 guys going in the first 3 rounds. Joey, what do you think?
Yeah,
I see 15.
I could easily see 15.
3, yeah.
The thing that I'm looking at here is that like if you're a team that's drafting, why would you spend a second round pick on a wide receiver when you know that there are so many talented ones that you can just wait until the pickings get a little slimmer, you know? Because like it's not like fantasy football where you got like 12, like if you don't take a running back there won't be any left, you know, like, or if you don't take a wide receiver there won't be any left, because like there's only a couple of positions you're drafting in fantasy, where like the NFL, if there's still 5 wide receivers that you like, there's a pretty safe bet that one of them is going to be around in the following round, you know? So like, I feel like it's going to push guys down the draft board, which is going to be really interesting.
So on that note, do you think that this year could theoretically then be an outlier, wherein you don't necessarily need that top 3 round draft capital to be a potentially valuable fantasy receiver? You might see some guys sneak into the 4th that have the same upside as some of the guys in the 3rd, despite not necessarily having the true draft capital.
It still depends on landing spot heavily.
Yes, and I guess like my point about that would be that it definitely is possible that you're going to have some guys falling into the 4th that deserve to be top 3 round talents in other draft years. But the guys that people are drafting in the first 3 rounds then are guys that teams are valuing enough to draft them there. You know what I mean? Like they're the guys that they're like, okay, we can't wait on this guy. We're going out and getting him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of where I'm at. But all right, this has been an episode of Dynasty Football Digest. You can find our written content at dynastyfootballdigest.com. You can find our IDP content at idpguys.org. You can subscribe there and also buy our magazine. We have a draft magazine coming out, collaboration with a bunch of different fantasy sites. We got a bunch of people working on it. Going to be a lot of different players. It's looking really cool. You can buy the magazine, and then that also gets you a subscription, I believe, to the website. We have the ADP coming for this upcoming season. We'll have rookie ADP, combined offensive and defensive ADP, trade calculator, obviously rankings, all that. I just put in my top 92 rookie rankings, which that was excessive. But like Shea Patterson's in there, it's definitely excessive. But yeah, we got a lot going on over there, and subscription also gets you access to our Slack channel, where you can ask us any questions, have us coach you through your drafts, whatever it is that you want advice on. If you don't have time to watch all of the players that we are watching, just ask us and we can tell you whatever you want to know.
Mm-hmm.
So, Andrew, got any last words here?
Biddy Cent, FF.
Thanks for listening. Dynasty Football Digest. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Nasty Nate, got you, homie. Good production right here. We the Digest Network. And my name's Clockwise Across. Shout out to Uncle David.